Why do we find ourselves freezing up when it matters most? In today's episode of Forged Youth Legacy Within, I sit down with Canadian female basketball Olympic coach, Shawnee Harlee, and we dive into the grit of it. Now, in this episode, Shawnee was dropping truth bombs about fear, courage, how to play to win instead of just not to lose. It's crazy. So get ready to flip your mindset and show up as your greatest self, on or off the field. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. Today, I have Canadian basketball coach legend Shawnee Harlee on with me, and I am so thankful that she has taken time out of her schedule to come and talk to all of us today about mental toughness. Now, Shawnee, you have been in this for quite a while, mental toughness training and coaching. Now, how did you get into all this? What was kind of like your little backstory?
Well, my backstory is I was an athlete back in the day. I still like to think of myself as an adult athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Then I spent a long time in the coaching world as a head coach and an assistant coach. And what started to become clear to me is how come on the biggest day, the biggest stage of our lives, why is it so often that we show up with fear instead of courage? Why do we choke and underperform instead of rise? And that it just intrigues me so much. And that's what steered me down this path of what's stopping us from showing up as our greatest self on the biggest day,
Mm.
and what can we do about it?
Oh, that's powerful. That is such a good question to be curious about because it's true. And it's not even just with athletes, it's with performers, it's with us on job interviews and our
Good one.
like anything
Right.
throughout life. So I'm so curious, like, what is maybe a moment for you when you were a younger athlete in your heyday that you found yourself in where maybe struggled under pressure and then how were you able to then move towards mental toughness? And did you have anybody that was able to guide you towards mental training?
The answer to all of that is I didn't have any tools
Okay.
when I was an athlete.
Hmm.
And I didn't even have the tools that we'll talk about as we go along here. I didn't even have those tools when I was a head coach. So I couldn't even help the athletes I was working with, right? It's unconscious incompetence,
Yeah.
meaning we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what I didn't know. So this is something that I found interesting when I reflect. So I look at what was showing up for me as an athlete, what was showing up for
Mm.
me when I was coaching, and this is what comes to me. There's 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 this thing called playing not to lose
Hmm.
and playing to win. One of them is fear-based, one of them is courage-based. And when I look back on it, I was in the playing not to lose. And then I even watched as I went in my coaching career as a head coach and then as an assistant coach, when when the storm comes, because it's
Hmm.
coming. It's
Yes.
coming whether we want it or not.
Yeah.
That's called pressure, fear, nerves, worry, anxiety, disappointment, sadness, anger, self-doubt, lack of confidence, whatever we big storms.
Yeah.
When the storms come, if we don't know what to do with the storms, what I see happening is we default to playing not to lose.
Mm.
And that never works because it's a fear-based behavior.
Right.
So it never works. We're timid. We don't want to take risks. We play it safe. We try to avoid mistakes. Whereas when we play to win, we do the opposite. It's like, I'm going for it. I'm going all in.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going all in anyway.
Yeah. Now that's interesting because it really is, it's a play on words. And that just is
Yeah.
like an example of how powerful words are. Like really how we frame things in our mind when no one else is listening is is how we end up reacting and responding and moving through life, right? And so say that again. Say that too. You playing to lose or
No, you're playing not to lose
playing not to lose.
versus playing to win.
Okay. Okay.
Playing not to lose is fear-based, meaning I'm
Yeah.
afraid of losing, so I'm going
Yeah.
to play it safe. I'm not going to take risks. I'm not going to put myself out there too much, right? It's a fear-based behavior. I'm going
Yeah.
towards safety.
Yeah.
We never show up as our greatest self when we go towards safety,
It's true.
ever.
Yeah.
So the other is playing to win. And if we don't like the word win, it would be like, I'm going to just jump in here. I'm going to do everything I can to show up as my greatest self. And my
Mm.
greatest self shows up with courage.
Yeah.
So that's different than playing not to lose.
Yeah. So what are some of the steps that we can take besides just rewording what is going on that can actually help us show up with courage? Because courage is something that is it's almost earned. We can't just decide some, or maybe we can. Like, can we just decide to be like, I'm gonna do courage today and boom, do it? Or is it something that is like incremental small wins leading up to?
Oh, I love this. Okay, so this is my opinion, meaning it's true for me.
Yeah.
I believe that we can never courageously show up as our greatest self until we face our deepest fear.
Mm,
And I think sport teaches us the exact opposite.
okay.
Avoid your fear, hide from it, don't ever tell anyone about it. So we're in this pretending mode all the time. We're faking.
Mm,
Fake it till you make it. Don't let them see you sweat. Just get out there and be confident. I think that is such bad advice
mm,
because it's teaching us to be emotionally unintelligent.
yeah.
Aren't they called feelings because we're supposed to feel them?
Yes, 100%.
What if we
Yeah.
said feelings bring information?
Hmm.
And if I choose not to look at these uncomfortable feelings over here, I
Yeah.
lose the information that they're bringing.
Yeah.
So that's where I start with every athlete that I work with and parent and coach is I go, tell me what your deepest fear is. And as soon as I know their deepest fear,
Hmm.
now I know the next steps to take. But you also said something else that was interesting. If I rephrase it in my words, what I heard you say is courage a choice.
Mm,
In my opinion, yes, it is
mm,
because it's different than confidence. I hear all the time the word confidence. I want my athlete to be confident. Wow, I just want to be confident on the big day.
yeah.
And what I think is that confidence is an emotion based on results.
Right.
That makes it unreliable. I teach courage because I do believe that courage is a choice.
Mm,
I believe we can choose to do something courageous even when we don't feel confident. But then the caveat is only if I faced my fear, because the fear is so powerful. If we
yeah.
don't face it and deal with it, it can stop us from taking courageous action. But once we face our fear, we know what it is, we look at it, we walk toward it rather than away from it. We know
Mm,
it's there, and it's be like, am I going to let fear drive my behaviors? Yes or no? And I
hmm.
want to say no. Then I'm like, okay, boom, courage. What would you do right now if you weren't afraid? What would you say right now if you weren't afraid? What action would you take right now if you weren't afraid? And then you can go, oh, but I am afraid. I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
Take courageous action anyway. You can. You can choose. courage. That's why I think it's so awesome. You can't choose confidence because it's an emotion, but you can choose courage because it's an action.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that. And I'm so curious how often people get asked, especially young like youth athletes, how often they actually get asked that question, what's your deepest fear? Right? I like so
Never.
when you exactly, right? So are you often met with just like because they aren't really sure how to answer and they haven't actually spent time thinking about what that fear is? Or are you met with, oh my God, somebody finally asked me this and I can share it?
My answer is because we don't practice emotional intelligence. We don't practice feeling our uncomfortable feelings.
Mm.
When I don't ask them what's their deepest fear because they'd be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Or they'd be
Yeah.
like, what? So I change the question because I figure out how to get to the answer by asking this. Tell me something in a really important game or the day of a really big competition. Tell me something that makes you nervous.
Mm.
Nerves are just like fear has a whole bunch of different names and
Yeah.
different levels. Nerves, I could replace that word with fear. Pressure, I can replace that word with fear. Self-doubt, I can replace that word with fear. So that's why when I first start with a client, they're not practiced in this language. But
Yeah.
when I ask them, tell me something that makes you nervous, they can answer just like that.
Okay. I love that. It's maneuvering to speak their language and to allow them to answer in a way that they understand too. That's
Right,
so powerful.
right.
Man, what changes we could make as coaches and as parents if we were able to totally like have this click for us too, right? Like I think too when we're talking about youth athletes is that so much is learnt in the home and so much is learnt from watching the coaches and listening to how the coaches are wording things and how the coaches are treating the players and how the you know what I mean? And so if I feel like at home, even like if parents were able to understand how to have this conversation with kids. And then do you think like a part of this also comes from the pressure of how coaches and parents are usually outcome based? And so the fear is about not being able to have the outcome that is going to make the coach or the parent proud, and they aren't sure how to navigate that rather than being able to have it be about the process goals. What are the small things that I can do within my control today now that will over time lead me to the person who can achieve that?
Lots in there.
Yeah.
And it's so good. I I believe that fear is a learned behavior.
Mm,
And I think we learn it from quite an early age. And if you watch coaches and parents and if we could understand and dig into this concept called fear, and then we could understand what it is and they go, "Oh, and then how does it show up?" Oh, there's parents in the stands yelling at their kids.
mm,
Bad body language, yelling at referees. Those are all fear-based behaviors.
mm,
Look at coaches who criticize and critique and lecture and punish for mistakes, for losing,
yeah.
for whatever an undesirable outcome is. And athletes pick up on all of that. Why are athletes afraid to make mistakes?
Mm,
Because they get punished, either physically or verbally, or they get blamed, shamed, and guilted.
yeah.
That's a learned behavior. If you
Mm,
think about, a 5-year-old when they first are dressing themselves and they
mhm.
have their shoes on the wrong feet and they have their shirt on backwards and it doesn't match their pants and they forgot to comb their hair and they come out of the room and they're like, "Wow, mommy, look at me. I dressed myself." And the mom goes, "Oh, look at you. Boom. Way to
Yeah.
go." At some point, the acceptance becomes judgment. Your
Ooh.
shoes are on the wrong feet. You didn't comb your hair. Your outfit doesn't match. You have so, and then extrapolate that.
Mm-hmm.
Now we get worried about what if I don't measure up?
Mm.
And we haven't asked this, but I think it's super important. When we're going to this fear, nerves, worry, self-doubt, lack of confidence, then there's the parents doing all their thing, then there's the coaches doing their thing. And if we dive in, I think there's a really important concept here, and it's this. We don't change behavior by addressing the behavior.
Mm.
We have to go underneath and see what's driving it. It's always a fear. Fear of
Mm-hmm.
what? So when I remember I mentioned earlier, I asked athletes, tell me what you're nervous about.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say, well, I'm nervous about making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
That actually isn't it. They're worried about being judged
Yeah.
about the mistakes. They're worried about, it's called fear of disapproval.
Mm.
And think about parents. They have all of the fear of what? So I do ask parents this question, what's your deepest fear?
Mm.
You know, that my kid is going to get cut, or they're not going to get the scholarship, or how come they're sitting on the bench. But when I help them go underneath that, I ask them, why are you afraid of that?
Mm-hmm.
And what comes up time and time again is they worry about what they think other people are thinking.
Yeah.
Think about coaches.
Yeah.
They're judged on their win-loss record.
Yeah.
So why do they punish for mistakes and losses? Because again, they're worried about what they think others are thinking. And
Mm-hmm.
so it comes into us as athletes. Why
Mm-hmm.
don't we take risks? Why do we go to the back of the line instead of the front? Why are we worried about trying hard things? What if, okay, I have to use this example. It was so poignant when it happened. I was working with a 13-year-old hockey player, and he said, I'm afraid of missing the net. I said, no, you're not. I said, give me a feeling
Mm.
that happens when you miss the net. So, see
Yeah.
how we're going under? I said,
Yeah.
give me a feeling.
Yeah.
And he said, embarrassed.
Mm.
That comes up a lot with athletes.
Yeah.
And then I asked him this, why do you feel embarrassed? And he said, well, because my parents usually have some reaction in the stands. I'm worried that my coach is going to get mad at me, and I'm also worried about what my teammates think. So if we go underneath, what's the root of embarrassment? The
Mm.
fear of disapproval.
Yeah.
Because I said this to him, okay, let's do this. Let's say you're in a hockey game and you miss the net. And when you miss, everyone in the arena stands up, gives you a standing ovation, shoots confetti into the air, and pays you $1,000. Then what? You know what he said? Well, then I missed the net on purpose. He's 13, but see what he figured out? If I could get approval or if I
Yeah.
could feel safe
Yeah.
when I miss the net,
Yeah.
then I would shoot more. Then
Mm.
I wouldn't feel so embarrassed when I missed.
Yeah. Oh, that's powerful. Rather than going for the behavior, going for the belief that's underneath.
Yep.
Yeah. So how do we get this information in a way that is like tangible, actionable for parents to be able to step out of the what the athlete is doing and more into who the athlete is? What is an exercise or something that they would be able to do to change that narrative and change that belief?
You mentioned it a little bit earlier. You talked about outcome and process,
Yeah.
and we're actually afraid of an undesirable outcome because
Mm.
we have a belief about it and a feeling about it. So we're afraid of an undesirable outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And what I teach to athletes, parents, and coaches is we have to face our deepest fears. So we have to dive into why am I afraid of that outcome, which I've kind of showed us how to do that.
Yeah.
But then it goes to, so then what else should we do? If we're not supposed to think about, we're supposed to detach from outcome.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to do, by the way, but it
Yeah.
is really healthy.
Yeah.
Detach from outcome, dive into process.
Mm-hmm.
I think a different way to talk about it, because you said at the beginning too, words have power.
Mm-hmm.
And when we pick the right ones, they can be really effective.
Yeah.
And what I teach next is what matters gets measured. And do you value courage? Say that to the parents or the coaches. Yes, I do. Do you value independent thinking? Yes.
Mm.
Do you value risk taking and trying hard things? Yes. And then I ask them, how do you measure it?
Ooh,
They don't know.
that is such a good question.
They don't
Yes.
measure it. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, well, then let's define give me three things that your kids or your athletes could do that
Mm-hmm.
would be proof and evidence of courage.
Yeah.
Here's something that would be proof and evidence of trying something hard. Because if we can't measure it, how are our athletes supposed to take action on it?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do we reward it if we
Yeah.
don't measure it? So the other thing that we're coming into, I used the word value,
Yeah.
is we're talking about the difference between goals and values.
Mm.
Goals are what we do, values are who we are.
Yeah.
And I think what's really powerful is when we show up with our values.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's ever thought about that. I don't even think an athlete would know what I meant if I asked them, well, tell me what your values are.
Mm.
And so I don't ask that question, but I
Yeah.
do help them go into, I'll say this. When, I used hockey as an example already. So I'd say, when you're playing hockey, tell me two things that you do on the ice that make you proud of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I don't use the word values. I ask a different question. But
Yeah.
see how I'm getting the athlete to measure it? Tell me something that you do. Then the athlete tells me, and then I'll say to the parent, next time you're sitting at the stand in the stands at the hockey game, the only thing I want you to notice and to write down and to measure and keep track of and have a statistic for
Yeah.
is the value of whatever your athlete said. I want to try this courageous thing. I want to try this hard thing. I'm going to take one risk in the first period. Whatever it is,
Yeah.
this is how we have to work, where we need to get away from the outcome because it's out of our control. And we
Mm-hmm.
have to go into the process. And maybe process is not a very good word because it doesn't seem like people understand it,
Mm.
but we have to be able to measure process
Yeah.
and then reward it.
Yeah. Oh, that's powerful. Oh, you're just dropping like gold bomb after gold bomb. I fucking love it. Because like I work with athletes as well, and we do a lot of talking around how there's like an athlete mindset and then there's a spectator mindset.
Oh,
And as a spectator, when we're watching sports, what are we watching for? We're watching for an outcome. We're being entertained. All of these things that are from the zoomed out position. But when you are, a professional athlete and are working super hard, you're not necessarily focusing on the outcome and the things that you see from the outside. You're working on the minuscule moments within that larger game or competition that is if do them to the best of your abilities, your controllables to the best of your abilities, then whatever the outcome, you get to walk away with your head held high because you did everything you could within your power in the mini moments. And that is the athlete mindset. It's a totally different thing. But then we have coaches and parents who
yeah,
are the spectators, and then that's what these kids are hearing
right.
is just a spectator mindset. So they're not even aware that there is actually a different way to see things. And that's why I really love doing this podcast and talking to people like you, because this information, like mental training, it just needs to be accessible to everybody who's involved with sports,
Yes.
coaches, parents, the youth, like PE teachers even, like people need to start understanding so that they are able to start influencing these young people in order to have these mindsets that are going to benefit them and bring more value to not only them in sport, but them in life as well. Yeah.
You made me think of another concept here. It's probably just a different way to say what we're already talking about. Uh, I teach a concept that's called two truths,
Okay.
which means as athletes, every time you step on the court, the field, the rink, jump in the pool, whatever it is,
Yeah.
there are two truths. You're either going to get what you want or you're not. And that's the truth. It's the
Yeah.
same for parents. When you're sitting in the stands watching your kid play,
Yeah.
you're either going to get what you want or you're not. Same with coaches.
Yeah.
And we struggle with this because those are two truths. They never go away. And we fight against the uncomfortable truth. What if
Mm.
I get what I don't want?
Yeah.
So, as an example, I was working with an athlete the other day. I said, tell me something that you get really nervous about. Losing. So I gave this concept of two truths. And I said, so what you're telling me is that you can't handle losing. Is that right? They're like, well, no. And I said, yes, that's what you just said. But see,
Mm.
when I go that way and I say, so you're telling me you can't handle losing. And yet losing happens way more in sport than winning does. But
Mm.
you're telling me that you can't handle it. And then they're like, well, no, and I'm like, well, you just said that's what you don't want. So then I'd help them dive in and I say, what if you could handle losing?
Mm.
Would you fear it less? What if you looked at losing as normal? What if you looked at losing as a growth opportunity?
Mm-hmm.
But then again, we have to go underneath because it isn't losing that they're afraid of. That's a thing. We're not
Yeah.
afraid of things, we're afraid of our feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm asked, why are you afraid of losing? Give me some feelings. Embarrassed. We talked about that already.
Yeah.
I'm worried about disappointing my parents. So there we come back to that's actually fear of disapproval, fear of judgment. I'm worried about getting benched, getting out of the starting lineup. So fear of what my coach
Yeah.
thinks. But there's another really big thing in here. I'll give this quote to athletes after we've kind of peeled some of the layers of the onion. I'll
Yeah.
say this to them. We talk about this fear of what other people are thinking or what we think
Mm.
they're thinking. And then I'll give them this quote. When you worry too much what others think, you will always be their prisoner.
Mm.
So I
True.
say to them, tell me who you are a prisoner to. Younger athletes, the very first thing they say are their parents.
Mm.
Older athletes say their coach and their teammates, then their parents. All right, so if you worry too much what others think, you will always be their prisoner. And I'm like, okay, well, is there anyone else's opinion? They think and they're like, my grandparents? I'm like, okay. Anyone else? Then they'll name some other people and I go, anyone else's opinion that you're afraid of? And they look at me. And then I go, do you need a hint? And they're like, yep. And then I'm like, I'm looking at them.
I'm like in a mirror. Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I'm afraid of my own opinion. That's right.
Yeah.
Because the self judgment is the opinion that lands the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
The self judgment. So we come back to two truths. I worry and I'm fearful of this uncomfortable one, whatever it might happen to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say to them, well, let's work through this. What if you faced it? What if you figured out that you're worried about all these other opinions? And what if you figured out that the opinion you're actually most fearful of is your own?
Mm.
Because the truth is, no one can reject you unless you first reject yourself.
Yeah.
So, what if we did this? This is what I say to them. All right, let's take losing because that's the thing you fear. That's the outcome you don't want. And I'll say this, okay. When you lose, not if, when you lose,
Yeah.
do you think that you can forgive yourself?
Ooh.
What's the opposite of judgment?
Yeah.
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
One of my favorite F words. And in my opinion, the path to freedom is forgiveness.
Mm.
We are in jail with our self judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Forgiveness helps us get out.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a really interesting conversation when I ask about forgiveness with athletes. I'm like, do you think you can forgive yourself? And they're like, first of all, they never thought of it. And then they're like, I don't know. Like they don't
Mm.
automatically go, oh, yes. Oh, that would be so easy. Oh, thank you
Yeah.
for mentioning that. It's so ingrained. Sport teaches us when we make mistakes. We're supposed to be hard on ourselves. We're supposed to throw ourselves under the bus. Don't you dare come out of that locker room with a smile on your face when your team is lost. Don't you dare get in this car with any kind of happiness when you haven't played well. So when I bring in the concept of forgiveness, it is so foreign.
Mm.
And yet, when they think about it, it's freeing. And this is how I teach it. It's two words. Whenever you make a mistake, whenever you get what you don't want, two words. That's okay.
Mm.
I didn't say you had to like it. That's okay. And then give yourself a coaching tip. That's okay. Shoot lower next time.
Yeah.
That's okay. Be shot ready next time. That's okay. Force left next time. And this isn't what we do. Parents have hissy fits.
Yeah.
Whenever there's an undesirable outcome, coaches have hissy fits, athletes have hissy fits, and we stay stuck in the problem.
Yeah.
So I think where we're going with this in the two truths, we will never be able to accept an undesirable outcome unless we learn to forgive ourselves.
Yeah. Failure equals feedback.
Right.
And I believe that sports really is a beautiful and all-encompassing way to learn that, even because without the failure, how do we know how to correct it? How do we know how to, it's like, what is it? Michael Jordan. I remember him saying something about like missing thousands of times and all of these things, and yet here he is, some athlete god, right, that we all put up on a pedestal, and for some reason we think that the guy's never missed a shot or he's never failed or he's never taken a as like, and he's the first one to admit that absolutely not. I took thousands and thousands of shots and missed so that I could make the good ones. And it also is too, it's interesting with some of the athletes that I work with, they're bringing it back also to this, what is it, the scientific formula or whatever it is, right? When you're doing an experiment, you don't come to the experiment and you're like, okay, this is going to work right off the bat, and here we go. And I know I'm going to get these results. Absolutely not. We learn in school that when you're building an experiment,
Right.
you come up with a certain thing and then it doesn't work. Oh, okay. So now we're just going to change one thing
That's
and then
right.
we're going to do it again. And then, oh, it doesn't work. Now we're going to change one more thing. And then you don't change all of it all at once. You don't, it's all these things. It's literally a process of elimination, and you have to do it through failing. And yet here we are in sports
Mm,
thinking that we're not allowed to fail. And if we do, it means we're a bad athlete or we're not coachable or no one's going to want us. We're never going to get recruited. Our parents are going to get mad, all this kind of stuff. And so it's being able, I have my athletes write failure equals feedback on their like hand sometimes so that it's a quick thing in a game that they can just look down and see it. And then you can see their shoulders or, because we've now gone through all of these years of thinking that failure isn't a good thing. when it is. I remember hearing, I think she ended up being an Olympic skier, maybe. And I heard this in a podcast once. And she said that every night at dinner, her dad used to ask her and her brother, "What did you fail at today?" And they had to come up with an answer. And then they
Wow.
talked about it and then talked about, okay, so what's the one thing that you're going to do different next time? And because of that, because of having parents who understood that concept itself, she had so much confidence in taking risks and leaning into the hard thing and it paid off, right? And so it's just, yeah. So how do you, I mean, you kind of explained it a little bit, but what are some other ways that we can help ourselves, our athletes, coaches, like all that? How can we move from being so set in failure is bad to failure is feedback, failure is accepted, and actually we want to fail because it means that we're trying something new and we're moving in the right direction?
I think one mistake that we make is that we expect it to come from the bottom up, meaning athletes. And I think it's the opposite. It needs to come from the top down. When I
Mm-hmm.
work with athletes, they cannot sign up with me unless at least one parent comes along
Mm-hmm.
because I can coach them up to the nth degree. I can
Yeah.
infuse them with courage. I can teach them about forgiveness. I can tell them to dive into process.
Yeah.
And all it takes is one parent to say, "What the F are you doing?"
Yeah.
Or one coach to say, "Get on the line.
Yeah.
We're going to run." All it takes is that in all the coaching that we've helped build them up just goes boom and it gets smashed. I really think it has to start at the top. I think we have to have it in
Mm.
our coach education system. And whoever that parent was of those athletes, every night we sat down and my mom and dad asked me, "What's one thing you failed at today?" I'm like, where'd those parents come from?
I know.
Where the hell did they learn that?
Yes.
Everybody's doing the exact opposite.
Yeah.
How come we're not teaching this concept in our coach education? How come we're not
Mm.
teaching it in all the videos? Some of these associations have videos that parents have to watch,
Yeah.
when their kid signs up. Why isn't this in there? Because
Yeah.
we have to remember many of these athletes are kids.
Yeah.
Their prefrontal cortex
Yeah.
is still not even half formed. And we're
Yeah.
expecting them to know how to do this mental toughness and have all of this emotional intelligence and just get out there and be confident. And I think it's a ridiculous expectation for
Hmm.
this thing that we're talking about to come from the ground up. I think it has to come top down.
Oh, I agree with that so much. I agree with that. And it's interesting for myself, these kids, they come through a 90-day program with us. And we have at the halfway point, as well as the last session, we have the parents come in.
That's good.
And and it's really, really, I love it. I love especially the midpoint one because by this point, the kid, like, they're already seeing massive results because they're having this mindset shift and they're starting to write and they're taking action and all these things. And then they come and sit in with the parents and I talk through, okay, where was the kid at before? Okay, what have you seen so far? Amazing. And we talk, through the growth and all of that. And then I've always warned the athletes that this is going to happen. And I say, okay, so now this is your opportunity. We want to hear what are mom and dad doing is awesome. You feel supported, you feel seen, you love it, you appreciate it. And so that conversation gets to go on. And then the second question is, what are mom and dad doing that isn't helping and that like how can they do something a little differently? And because you're there and the athlete feels trust, you're holding space for, and then you become a mediator for a moment. But
Mm-hmm.
it's actually quite phenomenal that these kids now all of a sudden are able to advocate for themselves and tell the parents, and usually it is something about, well, after the game, don't talk to me about it. Like, don't tell me all the things that I should have done or I could have done, or don't even tell me that I did good. Like, I just don't want to hear it, or all of these things. And I love that 95% of the time, the parents are open and receptive,
Mm,
and they haven't thought about it
good.
because they
Yes.
always have good intentions.
Yep. Agreed.
Right. And so it's just absolutely such a powerful moment for the athlete to be able to share that with the parent, be able to have a safe space to talk about it, and then have me as the coach be able to be like, okay, and this is kind of what we're teaching, and this is why, and what are some things that you could do differently. And by the end of the session, there's a little bit of like tangible game plan action that the parents can take and the youth can take, right? And then by the time the program is over, most of the time, the parents have actually done the work and they have stopped and been able to facilitate what the athlete needs. But it's awareness. Because what kid,
Yes.
it takes a very brave kid to be like, can you please stop doing this and did it in a healthy way? Because I'm sure there's kids who are like, stop doing that, right? Like out of like heightened emotion and all that. But to be able to actually have a calm conversation with parents about that is a super, yeah, it's super powerful. I love that meeting.
Well, that's why they say it takes a village.
Yes.
But we forget the village isn't always the answer. If
Mm,
the village doesn't have tools,
yeah.
it's just a village.
Yeah.
We need an educated village with
Yes.
tools to
Yes.
help guide this journey, because the journey with for an athlete is just so incredibly difficult, and it's
Mhm.
not anything like it was when we were their age.
It's true. It's so different. It actually blows my it blows my mind how different it is. Yeah, the editor of this podcast, his name is Kyle, and him and I actually played Team BC beach volleyball together when we were like 14 or 15. And then now he's the editor of this podcast, and him and I were talking the other day about just how extremely different the sport of volleyball is, even just in Canada alone, let alone the States, and
Right.
how young things are happening.
Good
Like
point.
these athletes are like 12, 13 years old, and they're already, 4 months before the club starts, they're needing to know who they're going to play for and know it, and all of these things. Yeah. And so it's interesting to see that
Mm.
over the years, the pressure of sports has gotten so immense. Not that it wasn't when we were there either, but it really has. It's gotten so immense and so much at a younger age. And yet all these mental trainings that can really help, they're still just kind of scratching the surface. And it's so interesting to me, like you said, that it isn't a something that is mandatory when you're going to be coaching or, all of these things. Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So like we have like 10 minutes left. I can't believe it. So I could talk to you for hours, Shawnee. What do you think is one tool that you could leave for a parent listening to be able to support their kid with this different mindset? And then I'm going to ask you for one for the coach and the athlete as well. But let's start with the parents.
I'm going to use something that you're already doing, and just with a little bit of a change to it. I think the most powerful thing that a parent can do is have a conversation with their athlete
Mm,
that says, for me to help you show up as your greatest self. Now, maybe we have to change the words, but with the people I work with,
yeah.
that's the language that we use. But for me to help you show up as your greatest self, what do you want me? What are two things you
Mm,
want me to stop saying, and two things you want me to start saying?
mm,
What are two things I should do less of, and two things that I should do more of. The reason that I say this is because unintentionally the parents often hinder the journey.
Mm.
The athlete doesn't have the courage to speak up.
Yeah.
And so I think the adults in the room need to step in and say, I think I could do a better job supporting here. So why
Mm.
don't I ask about how I could do that? So in a way, it's the parent asking for feedback. And I don't
Yeah.
think parents ever do that.
No.
For the coach, if I just had one thing for coaches, I would say, what do you value? That's a process. Again, I'm changing the word process to value.
Yeah.
And measure it and reward it.
Mm.
So if you want your athletes to try hard things, how do you measure it? How do you reward it? If you value courage, how do you measure it? How do you, if you, this is another one. Oh, hard work and hustle. I'm like, whoop, whoop. How do you, if you can't measure that, that's just coach speak.
Yeah.
So that's why I would say with the coach, just figure out what you value,
Yeah.
find a way to measure it, chart it, stat it, whatever it is,
Yeah.
reward it.
Yeah.
For the athlete, I would say the number one thing that I see that holds athletes back is it's the acronym is FOPO, FOPO, fear of people's opinions, which we've
Mm.
talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And yet the truth is the opinion that holds them back the most is their own.
Mm-hmm.
And I spend a lot of time with athletes working on the path that we already spoke of, which is forgiveness.
Yeah.
When you mess up, when things don't go the way you want, when you try something hard and it doesn't work out, you fall flat on your face, you miss the winning shot, that's okay.
Yeah.
And then give yourself a coaching tip that helps solve the problem.
Yeah. I love that. That's so good. Shawnee, thank you so much. Thank you for joining me today and sharing your wisdom and your time and your energy and intention. And I just want to thank you also for being you and for showing up and taking time and seeing this as important because you're part of change, like it's a movement.
Yes,
You know,
agreed.
and being mentally tough isn't an outcome, it's a process, it's a value.
Right.
And so as you are, impacting the lives of everybody that you're on social media, all the athletes that you're working with, all of this stuff, you are helping create this into an accessible thing, which is obviously very important as we were talking about. And so I just want to thank you for that, for seeing this as important and taking action, not just being somebody who thinks about it and okay, somebody else can do it. You're running full force and you're taking action. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. And isn't it so awesome? This this thing that we're talking about, like I feel like I could sit here for weeks.
Yeah.
It just it's so interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
this topic absolutely makes my heart sing because I was that athlete. I was that coach that lived in fear and all spent all my time playing not to lose.
Mm.
And I think about what we are doing that helping athletes, parents, and coaches rise
Yeah.
and show up as their greatest self on the biggest day, the biggest stage of their life. That's what we get to help people do. Isn't that just the
I
best?
just got goosebumps. I fucking love
I just, oh, I love it so much.
it. Yeah, amazing. Oh man. Okay, well, I want to have you back on. We could talk for hours, 100%. But for today, thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you everybody for tuning in. And if you liked this, make sure that you subscribe. And if you want to connect with Shawnee, all of her information and handles and all that stuff is going to be in the description. So make sure that you do reach out. She does do training. And I want to be trained by you. Catch you on the flip side, everybody.
You've been listening to Forged Youth. New episodes drop every week, so if this hits home for you, throw us a follow and subscribe. Forged Youth, where resilience is trained.